from within. And I want to actually, I want to direct that question to Steve if I can, if you guys don't mind, just because I hate party politics, frankly. And, it's a necessary evil. Steve, do you mind answering that? Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So, thank you, Daniel, for that great overview. I'm going to kind of start, I'll get to that question. I'm going to kind of start back at the beginning of the corruption of the state, which is why we're doing this. And I'll get to how, what the strategy is and how we're actually going to fix the Republican Party. Can everyone hear me back there? Make sure I'm good. Okay. So, if you spend any time in the state, you'll probably recognize some of these names as I go through it. But does anybody know the name Meyer Lansky?
Yeah.
Okay. So, if you're interested in the mob at all, you recognize that name. So he's a East Coast mob boss, and he worked with the Bronfman family, which is alcohol. They were bootleggers. Seagram's is the family. Seagram's instead that drink, but Seagram's is the alcohol that they're most known for. The Bronfman family currently is very good friends with the Clintons. That's something you can go dig on separately. Bronfman. So Meyer Lansky sent Bugsy Siegel, his #1 guy, out to Nevada and California back in the 30s, 40s, kind of opened up those markets. And Bugsy Siegel's #1 guy in their network was Kemper Marley. You guys will probably recognize that name if you've been in Arizona for a while. Kemper Marley's #1 guy was a gentleman by the name of Jim Hensley. Now, Kemper Marley and Jim Hensley got into some trouble with the feds, and they got rolled up. Jim Hensley took the fall. He was loyal and didn't rat on Kemper, so Kemper then, as a thank you, when that was all over, granted Jim the alcohol distributorship here in the Southwest. And it's now the #1 Budweiser distributorship, which is Hensley Brewing. So, Jim had a daughter named Cindy. Well, Cindy married a guy named John. All right. So how many people knew this? I raise a hand. How many people knew this background? About half the room, maybe. So you guys have a little bit more history. I go into some rooms and it's literally like 2-3 hands raised. John McCain, his power, his money, it all came from the mob. So organized crime has really been running this country for a long time politically. I mean, that's really where a lot of the powers come from, is from the mob. But Arizona especially, we are a mob state. We are an organized crime state. That's what the state was built on. In its entirety. It's still running today. So for the last 30, 40 years, they've been, they were building this McCain machine, everyone calls it. It's really just organized crime. That's how business got done. McCain was a Democrat. They had him run as a Republican just so he could get elected, but he was really a Democrat. And you can clearly see that's how he operated throughout his career. So you've got the McCain machine that was built heavily in this state. Now I'll connect some other names for it. So there's a gentleman by the name of Doug Roscoe. He's from Ohio. Now the Roscoe family in Ohio is also a mob family. They're an organized crime family. When he was 5 years old, his mom remarried and he took his adopted dad's last name of Ducey. So when he was in college, he came out here to go to ASU, and he was very quickly plugged in as an intern at Hensley Brewing. So he was recruited, he was groomed, and brought up through, so they gave him a private sector job. They gave him a CEO position at Cold Stone Creamery, so he could pad his resume, so he could build up his resume for eventual run of office. And they got him installed as treasurer, and then they got him installed as governor. So you've got essentially McCain's #1 guy that they groomed running our state currently. So you start to see why we deal with so much corruption, and we have a problem within the Republican Party because they're complicit in all this. So when the coronavirus scam kicked off, a lot of dots really started to get connected. Back in 2002, former Governor Jane Hull, in May of 2002, signed into legislation and I forget the number. I always forget the number, but it's the emergency statutes that give the governor the current
36787. 36787.
36787. I gotta remember it. That's the one that gives him all this unconstitutional power throughout the quote-unquote pandemic. And she signed that into legislation in May of 2002 when she was on her way out as governor. 2 months later, Jane Hull, along with some other very influential and wealthy individuals in Arizona, started a nonprofit. They took about $80 to $90 million and they started a nonprofit called TGen. Now, this is 2002, remember, timeline. 2002, they started TGen, and that was specifically nonprofit founded to trace and test for coronavirus. 2002, 2 months after she had just signed legislation that would give a future governor the powers that he's currently exercising. Now, TGen's number one benefactor is an organization, a nonprofit called City of Hope. City of Hope's number one benefactor is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Follow the money. Always follow the money. It's the easiest way to find the corruption. So, Doug Roscoe, is on the board of governors for TGen. When all this kicked off last year, we quickly put the pieces together that a lot of the federal money was going through TGen. Now, TGen is deeply connected to all three major state universities, U of A, ASU, and NAU. Deeply connected. There's a lot of other connections I could make, but I don't have the time to go through them. But I'm going to go to one more here. Back in 1999, former CIA Director George Tenet started a private venture capital firm called InQtel. It's IN-Q-TEL. Now that private venture capital firm, what they do is they essentially went out and invested and bought up technology that would be advantageous for the deep state, for the CIA. IN-Q-TEL. This is all public source information. You can literally you can Wikipedia it. It's on there. So George Tenet, the CIA director at the time, appointed a gentleman by the name of Michael Crow as the chairman of the board of InQtel. 3 years later, that same Michael Crow was appointed president of ASU, Arizona State University. He is still chairman of the board of InQtel. So for the past 20 years, we've had a CIA asset running our largest state university. The largest state university in the world. A lot of technology runs through that school. Where do you think all that money comes from? It's an incubator. Our state universities are an incubator for the deep state tech. When this coronavirus scam kicked off, all of that tech was run through those universities. So we are the hub of the deep state. We're a Republican state. We're a red state. They've been doing it under our noses for a long time. So in my estimation, I think Michael Crow is actually the head of the snake here, and Ducey's is probably his number one. So I think he's actually the one that controls the state. Not to mention all the cartel money coming up from the south. You got the Koch brothers money. You got the mob money, the McCain money. And you got DC connections, obviously. So there's a lot of corruption here, right? Now we got the Republican Party. Everyone says, now we'll get to the question we had from the gentleman back here. Why don't we just take over the party from the inside? Become a PC. I'm an elected PC. I'm still a Republican, registered Republican. But I am also the chair pro tem of the Patriot Party. It doesn't work fixing it from within. I mean, my parents were dragging me to precinct meetings when I was 10 years old, city council meetings down in Chandler. So they've been very active within the party as well for a long time, and they've seen the corruption as well. The way they maintain control from a power perspective as far as leadership goes within the state. So Kelly Ward, how does she maintain control? How does the establishment maintain control? They do it by proxy vote. Is everybody who's a PC in here? By raising hands. It's good. Who's a state committeeman? It's good. This is a very active room. I like it. So you guys have seen it firsthand, but do you all realize how bad it is? I think we talked about this. It's bad. I don't think most people even realize how the process works, number one, and then how bad it is. So I'm LD 20. I'm an LD 28. That's McCain's old district. That's Ducey's, Brnovich. That's like the heart of the swamp for Arizona, right? It's terrible. We had a virtual election, so we did our last election virtually. They're afraid to meet. It's very sad. So if you're doing a virtual election, do you need proxy votes at all? I mean, why? The whole excuse of proxies is that people can't make it to the meeting, right? Virtual vote. Why do you need proxies? Well, we had 226 votes cast in our election. I ran for first vice chair. Nicole Garcia, who's actually running for city council, ran as chair. So I said, hey, you get chair, I'll be first vice chair. We'll go clean this mess up. 226 votes cast. How many do you think were proxy votes? You have to guess. You're close. 114. So over 50% of the votes were proxy. Not one conservative got a state committee position. Not one conservative in our LD got a state committeeman position. It's bad. I mean, you got Martha McSally's number one operative in my district. So, it's bad. This is how they maintain control, though, because most people I talk to about the proxy situation, they're like, oh, so somebody can just carry my vote and they'll vote for me. Oh, yeah, they'll vote for you. They'll vote how they want. Like, what do you mean? No, they're taking my vote. They have to vote for me the way I want. Well, nope. Not how it works. So this is how they fool the public. This is how the party maintains control. They get people, oh, become a PC. Yeah, how does that work? How well does that work? Has that changed anything? I mean, what's the definition of insanity, right? Same thing over and over. And this is what the number one thing, and they're real smart how they do this, right? I think he said six LDs is all they need to maintain control in this state. All they need to do, all the establishment needs to do is control 6 LDs. This is one of them? So one of them, mine's one of them, LD 18, LD 15, a couple others. So at the state, we had, 1,300 registered votes, I think it was? 1,300? Remember how many of those are proxy? 500? So roughly 40% of the votes at the state meeting were proxy. And you got all these people wearing all those badges, like a badge of honor, like they're the cool kid. It's disgusting to me. That's what I call, it's ballot harvesting. And who do we blame for? Who do the Republicans blame for ballot harvesting? It's always the Democrats. The Democrats are ballot harvesting. All the Democrats' fault. Our country's the way it is. Our state's the way it is because of the Democrats. No. It's the way it is because of the establishment, the uniparty. It's the uniparty system at the top, at the leadership level that maintains control, and they don't really care who gets elected as long as it's their person. That's the bottom line. I mean, that's why Martha was set up to lose against Kelly. I mean, clearly. She's working at Raytheon now. She's got a nice little private gig, getting her paycheck. The whole thing's a setup. And I've seen this for the last 20 years. A lot of people are just starting to see it. I knew this needed to happen a long time ago. Like I said, I'm a Republican now. I left the party 12 years ago after they screwed Ron Paul. I became a libertarian because I was like, well, I got to do something different. Again, I don't like the definition. I don't like to be insane. I don't like to continue to do the same thing. Now, they quickly went off the rails. The Libertarian Party quickly went off the rails. And when Trump was running, I came back because I quickly saw that he would be our best option. I liked Rand Paul. I'd love to see him at the point, but he just wasn't strong enough. He wasn't the guy. He's not a fighter like Trump is, like me. I'm like, man, he's too soft for me. I love the guy. I love where his head's at, but he's just not a fighter. We need fighters. We need some Daniels, but we need wartime conservatives.
It's time to take the gloves off.
It's time to take gloves off. I mean, and if anyone that knows me, I do not pull punches. I will say whatever needs to be said, as difficult as it is to say it, and I'll say it to anyone. Say it to anyone. And that's, I think, what we need at this point. We need people that will stand up no matter what the cost, and will say what has to be said and do what has to be done. At this point, we're hardcore. We are, the Patriot Party is the activist party. We're the ones that will go out there no matter what and do what's got to be done. So, kind of circle back on this, fix it from within. I mean, good luck. from my perspective, that can't be done because they've rigged it. They've rigged the party leadership to where you cannot get them out. You can go take over an LD, you'll get some success over here. We got a few LDs. Oh, we took this one over. We got some conservatives in there. That's great. But they know exactly what number they need. They'll always out proxy you. McCain was really good at establishing that process.
All right, yeah, so just for clarity here, so you're not going to be like Ezra, try to reform the party from within, be the conservative wing of the Republican Party. Are you going to be seeking the the Patriot Party, are you going to be seeking ballot states?
Yeah, good question.
As Patriot
I appreciate you asking. That's actually what I said. Perfect segue. So everybody else, you're going to split the vote, right? You're going to split the vote. That's not our goal. That's not our intent. We never want to have to run a Patriot Party candidate in the general. Our goal is to never have to run a Patriot Party candidate in the general against another Republican. So now we were down in Tucson. We had a great meeting down in Tucson. Does anybody listen to Garrett Lewis? Okay, I know he's not up here, but he's on. You can hear him on the internet. He's on iHeartRadio down in Tucson. We'd love to get him up in Phoenix and get him syndicated across the state because he's the best. I mean, he's like the best activist we've got. And that guy, he's one of us. He'll go out there and say what has to be said. So we had a meeting with him and some other people, and they are so fed up with the Republican Party down there in Pima County, down in southern Arizona, because they don't get support. The Republican Party's given up on many of those districts and many of those seats because they just don't think they have a shot. So they're like, can we run as a Patriot Party candidate? I go, be my guest. Run as a Patriot Party candidate if there's no Republican running. Sure, why not? We'll support you guys for sure. To your point, we want to find the constitutional conservatives, identify those candidates, the strong ones, vet them, support them in the primary as a Republican. We want them as a Republican in the primary to get past to the general, get past the establishment candidates. Now, we know the Republican Party, the corrupt GOP is not just going to give up. They're going to fight back. But we're going to put them on notice. If you guys continue to play the games like you did to Daniel in the primary, we will run a general candidate against you, and you will lose, and the Democrat will win. It's a threat. It's an aggressive threat. It's a scorched earth mentality. But I feel like it has to be done a couple of times to where they learn their lesson and they stop doing it. I mean, I don't know what else to do at this point. It's a very aggressive mentality, and that's how I operate. I'm like, whatever. Like I said, if it's war, you don't ask. When you're in war and someone's shooting at you, you can't just ask them to stop shooting at you. You gotta fire back. Aggressively, very aggressively, with overwhelming power. Overwhelming force has to be used.
One of the things I've noticed is that the Republican Party never purges the traitors from its ranks. We've had Mitch McConnell in office for years,
Yeah.
McCain 30 years. They never get rid of them. The RNC never says, we're disowning this person because they don't stand for what we stand for.
Why?
And instead they go on to the PCs and the state committee and say, you need to vote Republican.
They gaslight you.
Yeah.
These people, I mean, everyone knows what a narcissist does, right? They gaslight. They make you think you're the problem.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing to you right now. You guys didn't work hard enough. You didn't vote enough.
Yeah, Liz Cheney's a perfect example. They will not be
Yeah. It's because why? Because they're all in on it. They're all in on the scam at the top. This is a uniparty system. And they've done a great job. Here's another thing. We've got to focus local. Right? That Constitution, the 10th Amendment, each state is sovereign. We as a state of Arizona have a lot of power to push back on anything the federal government does. Because the founders intended that each state essentially was its own little country. And then we came together as a United States to operate and protect everyone at the federal level. But we've gotten so far away from that where all of our money, they didn't intend that all of our money was sent up to Washington, D.C., so D.C. could send it back down to the states, right? That was never intended. We've got to reform our state, fix our own problems, clean up our own backyard. And to Daniel's point, all these other states that are working on a Patriot Party, some of them are a little bit further than others. We're by far the furthest ahead. We were blessed because of obviously Daniel's campaign to be able to just take that infrastructure and convert it right to this. I mean, it could not have worked out better. Obviously, God had a hand in that.
I think your example is that, and I think the state is marching over the intensive energy to protect the state, so.
Yes.
The threat from the federal government was to North Dakota, well, we're not gonna give you any money if you don't do A, B, and C.
Mhm.
They turned around and they said, okay, you're not getting our money.
That's correct. Just stop sending them the money.
No, absolutely. What's the significance of President Donald Trump mentioning the Patriot Party?
So he did. So it very quickly after the election, he had floated it out there, saying, "Hey, I might create another party, and maybe I'll call it the Patriot Party." I was like, "Well, cool. Come talk to us." My email's out there, my phone number's out there. You know, I'm waiting on his call. He's one man, right? He did a lot of good for this country, but we can't depend on one man to solve all our problems. So whether or not he decides he wants to start a third party or not, whether or not he supports a third party or not, he's not in Arizona. He's not fixing Arizona. We're fixing Arizona. We'll support whoever the constitutional conservatives are. I would say one thing, and there is a gentleman at CPAC right now from Idaho. He's the one starting the Patriot Party in Idaho. And he's quickly recognized that the GOP establishment is the one that's getting behind this. It's the establishment, remember, so this isn't like this isn't the right wing of the GOP. This is literally the establishment is the one putting out this America First GOP initiative. It's more of the same. It's just more controlled op. They see the threat of a third party, and they've quickly recognized that they've got to figure it out. Oh, how do we maintain control? We'll start our own inside the GOP. Same actors. It's just the same actors doing the same, just starting over. So what we've got to be able to do is pull enough of the actual constitutional conservatives out of the rigged system, give them a home where they can actually thrive and develop. We'll build a large enough base. The strategy to take over the Republican Party, because we don't want to become the next party. We would rather just go back and fix the Republican Party. I mean, we still all subscribe to the ideals. They're just not doing it. So we build enough numbers, and we come in one fell swoop in 2022 when it's time to get elected as PCs again, and you literally take over the entire state all at once. We'll have the numbers because they won't know what we're building on the outside. They won't have the exact numbers. They control it very well on the inside, but if you're on the outside, they won't have as much information to control. 10,000 people can take over the entire state. You literally come in all at once, get elected as PC, and then you go vote everyone out.
Exactly.
And you go clean up the bylaws. And you go remove the proxies.
Exactly.
And it's done. Because who determines who gets the money and power? Who determines who gets the money and power in the elections? As far as if you're running as a candidate, who determines that? The chair, the head of the party, essentially. Kelly Ward basically determines if you're going to get any support as a candidate. Josh Barnett, he ran in CD, was it 7? 8? CD 8? So 7. CD 7 down in Phoenix against Ruben Gallego. So you got a Democrat incumbent, you've got a patriot that's trying to run for Congress against him. You got no support. There was no primary. There was no other candidate. You got a Republican versus a Democrat, and Kelly effectively told him, you're not ready yet. Maybe we'll help you next time. That's effectively what he was told. That blows my mind. I mean, I'm not saying allocate all of the resources towards him, but I mean, shoot, she even fundraised off Ruben Gallego. She fundraised off of some stuff Ruben Gallego was doing, but she didn't give any support to his opponent. It just blows my mind. I mean, I can tell stories all day. So we've got to be able to build that base and come back in one fell swoop and just clean it out. I saw a question back here.
I just wanted to state a bunch of us went to this meeting where we could interview the 5 candidates that were going for one city council opening. All of us that were there and other people I know from emails all really liked this conservative candidate, Connie. Miraculously, this lousy idiot from the school board who had no qualifications whatsoever in business, law, or anything else was appointed by the mayor, I guess. The whole council picked him because he he would do what they wanted. I don't know, but it made me so mad that we wasted all of our time going and interviewing these people.
I mean, that's what happens. So we've got to clean out each LD, go LD by LD, clean them out, clean out the leadership, clean up the bylaws. We got to clean out the counties, clean out the leadership, clean up the bylaws, and then go to the state and do the same. So it's going to take a lot of effort over the next year, essentially, to build this movement, and that's what we're doing right now. And Tanya actually has the petitions in the back to allow us. We need to sign to become a third party, give us access to the ballot counting and adjudication process, give us the ability to be recognized third party, so we can actually build this movement on the outside to go take back the Republican Party. We need everyone's time, talent, and treasure at this point. We need all three. You know, Daniel used to say, give me at least one. In the primary, just give me at least one. There's no more time. We need all three at this point. So our website is actually stoptherhinos.com. I mean, that gets right to the heart of it, right? It's literally stoptherhinos.com. That's our website. Our mission statement is very simple. It's restore and maintain constitutional conservative leadership in Arizona. That's simply it. Question?
Okay, yeah, I'm going to bring up something that's been mentioned to me by other people, is that some of the members are kind of caustic and aggressive and sometimes belligerent. Sure. And that's not going to win, and influence people. That's not how you're going to do it. And so I think if you've got people like that are out there causing trouble, you're going to need to rein them in, because I know we're talking to people that are elected, that say, well, those McCarthy supporters, they're this, they're that, they're this other thing. But they're mainly saying unreasonable, you can't talk with them, that type of thing, or being very belligerent, calling people names, that type of thing. And, if I go and start calling you names, how long are you going to listen?
Oh, we'll go at it for a while. We'll go at it for a while. See, I'm a fighter.
Yeah.
Someone back here, saying you got to punch back, right? I mean, I understand your point. And you're saying this is from our representatives or
I'm not
elected?
saying you compromise what you believe.
Well, no, but you're saying this is coming from. But who's that coming from? A lot of our representatives? Yeah, they don't like it when we call them out, do they? Boy, and let me tell you right now, you don't have any friends down at the legislature. How many of our legislators put forward a bill in this session that would get rid of the machines? How many? Zero. Why?
That's my question. To tie into that, can you please elaborate how you see how the legislature constitutes? And what are they afraid of? Are they getting money from China?
That's a good question.
Are they afraid of what happened to Biden's son, where everything was exposed?
So why aren't people? Why? So there's probably really three main ways that people are compromised. It's through some sort of leverage, blackmail. They've got information they don't want out, and that's probably one of the main ones. Money, promises of money and power, and then threats. Speaking of the threats, I did a poll. There's a Facebook group called the Constitutionalists. Probably some of you are in that. I did a poll. I said, rate these in order of importance and duty and how they should be ordered. And I put God, family, country, and then God, country, family. What was it, like 90% were God, family, country? I believe it should be God, country, and family. Because if you don't have a country, where's your family? But that's a hard one, right? What if your kids are being threatened? What if you're in office? What if I was in office and someone says, if you do this or you don't do this, I'm going to kill your kid? How would most of you react to that? How would you handle that?
But the point is, even if you give into it,
I would not give in to that. You're right, but that's the hard. I had someone recently that we met with that said he was floating a serious. He was looking at a serious run for governor. He was seriously looking to do a run for governor. And I presented him with that question. He said, "Oh, they threatened my kids. I'd cave." He flat out told me, "They threatened my kids. I'd cave." I said, "Then you're not going to be my governor." Because I'm sorry, if they did it, I'd tell them, "You do what you got to do, and I'll come and do what I got to do if you do it." Because I would never cave to threats. I'm not compromisable. It's the bottom line. I know Daniel's not compromisable. Trust me, I've spent enough time with him. We hold each other accountable at it. Man, trust me, I know you live. That's my threat to him. Question.
Steve, I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's some other questions, but go ahead real quick.
Yeah, circling back to this issue about support of the legislature, as you know, Yavapai County, pretty conservative area.
Mhm.
Everybody that runs for the state legislature advertises themselves as conservative.
Always.
Are you getting any support from the LD1
Mr.
delegates?
Wynn?
And who are your friends in the legislature, if you have any at all?
Well,
Yavapai County.
we've got a few people that were starting. I think some of these legislators are starting to see how much of a power the Patriot Party is becoming. For example, I'll just give a quick example. So that mask bill that Joseph Chaplet put forward, that's essentially our bill. We essentially handed that to him. Said, please run this. 2770. So that keeps the government from being able to use businesses to enforce the mask. That's a huge one. And that's our bill. That we will take 100% credit. Obviously, Joseph Chaplet has done an amazing job as a freshman representative to get that bill out there and get 21 co-sponsors. I mean, he's awesome right now. Like, I would say he's probably like one of our best. He's new, so he's not corrupted yet. I say yet, so let's keep him accountable. So the example of that is, do we have friends? There's a few people who we've been having conversations with, and I think they're starting to see how much influence that we can have. There was 3 holdouts on that bill in the House: Joel John, Udall, and Osborne. We've already got Joel John and Udall to support. So they were not supportive. We activated our network, we got our database rolling, and we said everyone needs to call and email. They got a lot of calls and emails, and very quickly they flipped. We're still working on Osborne, so I would say everyone contact Osborne. Joanne Osborne, everybody needs to contact her, get her on record. Either is she going to support, and if not, why? Get her on record. Tanya, real quick.
Yeah, can I add to that though? So, this gentleman just came up and asked me, how do we get registered to be able to help with that stuff? So currently, we have about 20,000 people in our database. So those 20,000 people all got an email, phone calls, text messages saying, you need to call, you need to email, you need to get on the horn with those 3 Republicans that were being a holdout. So if you want to be a part of that, where you are notified anytime that we are in a fight for any of these bills, you just go to stoptherhinos.com and you register.
Yeah, sign up,
And that
join the
puts you
movement.
in our database.
So Rhinos, it's R-I-N-O-S, not no H in there. Sometimes people put the H. So it's R-I. You guys all know. I know you guys know. So stoptherhinos.com. Click join the movement, input your information, and you'll start getting the communication from us. And as I mentioned, we're the activist party. Like we're doing the job the Republican Party should be doing. We're actually tracking legislation. We're putting legislation forward. We're fighting for the legislation. We're fighting against the bad legislation. We've got somebody on our staff who is essentially our legislative director, and he works every day down at the Capitol, effectively watching and tracking the legislation. And he knows how to get things passed, and he knows how to get things done. And that's the key, is that we're doing what the Republican Party should be doing. For example, we're recalling Speaker of the House Rusty Bowers. Okay, we filed that as a party. We've identified the candidate, so the person that filed as the responsible party is going to be the candidate that we support. By a woman by the name of Tori Smock. She's awesome. She's strong. She's a fighter. She's a constitutional conservative. She's going to be great, and we want to get her elected. So we've got some good financial backing. We've got some of that establishment money that used to support the GOP, saying, I'm coming over now to support the Patriot Party. These are big donors. These are the guys that got Ducey elected. Because they see what's going on, and they realize now that the Patriots have to take control. And these are guys that are close to billionaires at this point. So we're recalling Rusty Bowers, and from my estimation, the first person that should have held him accountable is Kelly Ward. Because if you have a platform as a Republican Party, and your representative that got elected under your brand isn't doing their job, you're the first person that should hold them accountable. I haven't heard a word from Kelly Ward about Rusty Bowers. I haven't heard words. LD20, they did a censure on Boyer. When he went off the rails, they censured him, but again, what does censure do? It's nothing. It's a big, oh, we did something, and he didn't do anything. Kelly Ward, haven't heard her trying to hold him accountable. So again, we're doing their job for them because they will not, because they're not incentivized to do it. They will lose control if they start holding their own people accountable, is what happens. Question right here real quick. You had your hand for a while.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about the deep state and corruption. It's so big, it's like we talked about the Patriot Party. Okay, well, nobody will arrest these criminals. So I think we have a problem with
Judicial corruption. It's compromised for sure, and I don't know exactly who in Arizona, but that's the thing is we're so hyper focused on Arizona that what we do is our legislature is our representatives, so they need to do what we tell them, not what we ask them, what we tell them. They work for you. People, I've said anyone here, it's like you got to be, be calm with your representatives. Well, I'm calm, but some days I'm calm, calmer than others. And I'm very firm with them. I tell them what to do. You need to do this because this is what the people are demanding. We've got to hold them accountable. If we can correct our legislature, if we can get them to do their jobs properly, that can solve a lot of problems. Now then, of course, we got to get a good governor and a good attorney general who will enforce those laws. If the feds come in, again, 10th Amendment, if the feds try to step in our state, you got a solid governor? Solid governor? And you got an attorney general that will stand up to the feds. Hey, I'm resting a little bit easier at night at that point. So it's just we've got to get hard with these people though. No more hero worship with our elected. It's like everybody wants to go. Everybody kind of puts them up on a pedestal. They're your employee. They are your employee. They work for you. Treat them accordingly. I'm not saying be disrespectful. I'm not saying be rude to them. Don't be hateful to them, even though sometimes I'm guilty of that, so I have to check myself. But if I have an employee and they're not doing their job, they're going to hear from me. I have to hold them accountable. So that's how I view them. Question.
2 minutes.
Okay, very quickly. I wrote a letter to Ducey and to the senators saying that this state is about to be invaded by illegal aliens. If you don't step up and deputize the National Guard and send them down to these border county sheriffs, then I'm prepared to try and organize a militia, separate militia, the farmers, the ranchers, and others militia from Arizona. And I'm sick and tired. I naturalized 3 of my immediate family from Argentina. I'm sick and tired of having illegal immigrants come into this country and ruin it. And so it's gotta stop. If it doesn't happen with our 2 senators and our governor, then I'm ready to. I spent a lot of time organizing. I'm an area director for the Republican Party. I have almost all my precinct committeemen filled. I worked only 3 years. I was a ward committeeman in Chicago for the Republicans. I know corruption.
Yeah.
I know how to organize.
Yeah.
So the point I'm making is, if these people don't step up to the plate with this invasion, and when they call the January 6th thing a riot, an insurrection, bullshit.
Yeah.
It was not a riot, and it was not an insurrection. It was organized by the Democratic left-wing Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and the news media.
They've got a narrative they're trying to push for sure. So to your point, what happened on January 6th in D.C. is what happened. Again, really trying to remain focused on Arizona, to your point, at the border. Obviously, the governor needs to take control of that. He has the ability. As a private citizen, you have certain rights. I would say, technically, because of the DIC Act that was passed, we should not have an actual militia per se. There's many constitutional organizations, patriots, so whatever, I would say operate lawfully and be careful. Real quick question here, I know this is rapidly.
all the rhinos that we've had to hold our noses and nose for. For a while I was annoyed with Daniel for not supporting the rhino he had running. And then my husband came up with the idea that he did the right thing by not supporting someone like that. He was standing up for who we are. But there are too many times you've had this, as a DC going around and talking to people
Yeah.
and say, I can't stand her, I said, you have to go.
But yeah, it's tough, right? Feel compromised. Well, that's why we started Patriot Party, because if the establishment plays games in the primary, we will put up a general candidate against the Rhino to teach a lesson. People have to see what's at stake. We can no longer compromise our ethics and our morals just to vote for a party, because again, they always say the best, the worst Republican's better than the best Democrat, and they're all the same to me at this point. So I won't vote for rhinos. I won't. But I appreciate everyone's time. I hope this was informative and valuable. Please, www.stoptherhinos.com. Sign up for our updates. Please sign the petition. Doesn't change your party affiliation. It just allows us to get ballot access in 2022.